Hello everyone, this is Taryn with Wonderfully Made Handcrafting, and today I'm working on day 4 of By the Wall for God's Consider Jesus Devotional. Now it seems like it's been a while since I've done a YouTube process video, and it basically has, because I was an attendee at a Bible journaling retreat in Savannah, which was amazing. It was just nice to be an attendee instead of one that is putting on the retreat, so that was exciting, and I got to hang out with a bunch of my friends, so it was just a time of refreshing for me. But now I am jumping back into things and starting Bible journaling again. I mean, I was throughout that weekend as well. I just didn't have any videos because I was just enjoying the process. So here I am. I'm creating this really fun background with the Mosaic of Faith stamp. I did a reel on Instagram doing the same kind of technique, but I wanted to show it over here on YouTube. So what I'm doing is I am doing resist embossing. So as you saw, I used the VersaMark ink and then stamped that down onto this white paper and used clear embossing powder. So you'll see me here heat that up. You won't really be able to see the design yet. But just wait a second, because once I add this fun Ferris Wheel Press ink, you'll be able to see everything kind of come to life. So this is their new Glistening Glass ink. I am absolutely in love with this color. It has a blue-gray base, a sheen of red, and a gold shimmer. Now this is actually being released today, April 7th, so you can pick it up for yourself, and you'll really see this gold shimmer pop. You can use this in fountain pens or dip pens or paint with it. It has so many different uses. So if you're not, into calligraphy or handwriting or anything, don't worry, because you can really use it for a bunch of different things. So I'm loving how this is turning out. It does have a good amount of gold, so I will want to tone that down a little bit with gesso. Also, I wanted to make mention, if you saw me use that paintbrush before I heat set that embossing powder, that is just to make not so much of harsh lines on the edges of the stamp set. So that's why you saw me kind of use that paintbrush to muddy up the edges. And now you'll see me come in here with some gesso. Now this is plain white gesso I picked up, I believe at Hobby Lobby. And I am just going to work it into this paper until I'm happy with it. It does take a good amount of time. I want to make sure that I see that mosaic tile look, but I also don't want it to, overtake the whole page, because this is just a background. I used some paper that was just the size of my interleaved Bible page. So once I'm done with this, I can just slap it into my Bible journaling page and I can work everything, all the cluster and everything, and put it together outside of my page. So that is a fun way that I've been working in my interleaved Bible lately. You just have to have some extra paper. So this is just some mixed media paper, heavy stock paper from Tim Holtz. I like it because it takes a lot of, wetness. But yeah, so just grab what you can. That's what I had in my stash. And as you can see, I just keep on working this white gesso in. I do use my spray bottle a little bit so I can move that gesso around while it is still wet. And it looks a little bit scary as you're covering up your design, but don't worry, it is just a background. And I love how it peeks through in different ways. So some ways that mosaic tile is going to show a lot, and other ways it's very faint. So I also have the Picket Fence Distress Spray Stain that I'm going to flick over this background. I'm also going to do the same thing with the ink. I really like how that gold just pops when you do little flicks of ink. You'll see that as that dries, but that's just bringing in some more of that gold again, since I toned down so much of it in the background. So now that I have that all down on the background, this background is going to be done. I just have to make sure to heat set it before I start working on my cluster. Now this page will curl a little bit, so I have to kind of bend it a little bit as I dry it. But this is just the difference between my real version and today's version on YouTube. It's a little bit lighter. I used a little bit more gesso in more places, but I really like the tones that it gives, and it matches perfectly with this kit. So this is kind of what I got going on for the cluster of this page. I have an old book page that came with the ephemera kit as the texture, quote unquote. And then I have this flashcard that says sanctifies, because that is what we're talking about in Hebrews 2:11 on day 4. Hebrews 2:11 says, "For he who sanctifies and those who are sanctified all have one source. That is why he is not ashamed to call them brothers." And we're talking about how Jesus Christ is not ashamed to call us brothers and sisters, because our righteousness comes from God. It's not of ourselves, it is from him. So that is kind of what I have going on here in my head as I'm journaling this. I decided to glue this down. Now I do lose a portion of video here, so you'll just have to excuse that. Apparently my phone was full, so I had to delete some stuff. So anyways, I have pasted that page down, and then I'm using this old stamp set from By the Wall for God. I forget what I think it was from last January. And I love all the little coffee or tea rings. So I'm going to stamp that on the side of the page using just some regular distress ink, I believe in walnut stain I used. And then I'm going to fill that in with ground espresso spray stain. I just kind of spray some down on my mat, and then I'm going to fill that in with a paintbrush. So that is the part that you miss when I lose some footage here. I'm actually really happy that I caught this fairly early on of missing all this footage, because usually that doesn't happen. I don't look at my phone too often as I'm recording, and I just happened to take a second and make sure that everything was in view and realize that my phone had stopped recording. So it was a good thing. So anyways, here you'll see that distress stain, and I also show you this little tag that I put on the tea bag. I did use some score tape to put down that tea bag. I do end up changing that, but we'll see that in a second here. I had these cute little clips from my friend Debbie. They are Felicity Jane clips, and I was thinking of using them to match the gold, but then decided on doing a different clip from Tim Holtz. But anyways, you'll see me here. I am using my ephemera book that I have everything pasted down into. I will probably do a video on this. This is super simple, but I had a couple people ask me if I could do a video, so why not? So you'll see that probably in the near future, but it is totally inspired by Juicy Christians over on Instagram. Natifa, and she has this amazing ephemera book, and I just followed along kind of what she did with a mixed media journal. So now I am putting these two little snippets down that I chose from Tim Holtz's Curator line, and I tried out that little paper clip from Felicity Jane, but ultimately decided on using one of Tim Holtz's tiny clips, just simply because it was not as wide and longer, so I could see more of those little snippets. I just felt like the gold wide mini clip was taking up a little too much room, so that is why I chose the other one. I did glue down that floral bunch to the flashcard, and you'll see me add a little bit of foam tape to the back of that because I want it to pop. But first off, I feel like I need a little bit more texture going on here. That seemed like too much of a harsh line underneath the flashcard to just end there. And so I decided on grabbing my favorite mummy cloth. I'm going to stock up this year again in the fall when that comes out. And I love just spreading it and making it look more gauzy and not so much of, you know, like just this ribbon kind of on the bottom. And that makes the bottom line less harsh and just softens up that bottom edge a little bit more. So usually I would staple down this mummy cloth to make sure that it stays in place exactly where I want it to. But since I'm using foam tape on top of this flashcard, the foam tape should be able to hold this down perfectly. I just want to lay it out the way that I want it first. And then once I paste down this little cluster with the flashcard and florals, that should hold it in place just fine. Now, I like to add little pieces of foam tape around all the little floral edges so that way they don't get smushed and bent in a weird way. I probably wouldn't have done this when I started Bible journaling, but I really want everything to stay as nice as possible for years to come. So that is why I add all those little tiny pieces of foam tape everywhere. And now I decided to change out that little T tag. I loved it. However, it just didn't go with the blues that I had already on this page. It felt like it was a little bit too bright with the blues I had in the floral and in the background. And so instead I'm using this little stamp set from Tim Holtz. I'm going to stamp it on some craft paper and emboss it. I've just used VersaMark ink. I love this ink because it's very detailed. And so I'm just going to heat set, and then I'm going to make 2 of them so I can paste them back to back on this little string to make it my own tag. Now, to put this T label tag together, I end up using my Barely Arts glue. Now, this glue works amazingly, however, it doesn't dry instantly. So I did decide to hold it down together for a little bit because I tried first off to let it go and I knew that it wasn't going to hold. So I just held it maybe for about 20 seconds. If you wanted something to dry more instant, maybe use some collage medium glue, but this worked just fine. So now I am ready to paste this down in my page. I'm finished with what I have going on here. Besides rounding off the corners, I do want to do that to kind of mimic what I have going on in my interleave Bible. Those are all rounded corners. And so I'm deciding how I exactly want to glue this down. It does have a little bit of a wonky shape, and I know that I want something to hold it down nice and flat to the page. And so unfortunately, all the score tape that I have, or the scrapbook.com version, is this super thin version. If I had a wider version, I definitely would have used that. But I decided to put that score tape around and then also use some Barely Arts liquid glue. And then I will paste this down on my page. Luckily, I got pretty good placement the first time because you don't get a second chance with score tape. So that is it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did enjoy it, please give it a thumbs up. I will try to leave everything I use down below in the description. Make sure to go check out the new Ferris Wheel Press ink, and have a wonderful day, guys. Bye.